Rodney Dean Aurich was born February 27, 1944 in Denver, Colorado, and grew up in Nebraska. Rod, as I mentioned, served this nation for 23 years in the United States Air Force, stationed in Japan, Turkey, Vietnam, the Philippines, and, of course, in the United States. After retiring from the Air Force, he worked for the United States Postal Service as a supervisor for 20 years. Rod had a strong faith, and in his words, a solid relationship with God. Rod was a member here at United Church of Sun City since April of 2002, and prior to that had belonged to Scottsdale Congregational United Church of Christ. Rod had a life in the church, going to church each Sunday while he was growing up. And of course, Rod was involved in our congregation in so many ways as vice moderator, past moderator, and then came back and served an additional year as moderator. He was member at large recently, and for a few years was our sound and video board technician. He served on a number of boards and committees for the church, and he sang in the choir. Outside of the church, Rod had several interests. He loved to golf. He was a master mason. He had been a Boy Scout leader. And for the last several years, as I mentioned, he had been part of the Tremble Clefs, and the Tremble Clef director, Sun Jun Lee, is with us today as well. Welcome. Rod and Susan have been married for 42 years as of this past Thursday. Together they raised 5 kids: Kelly, Todd, Brian, Dean, and Clifford, all surviving. Rod is also survived by one brother, Clyde, 4 grandchildren, and 3 great-grandchildren, as well as other relatives and a host of friends. During their marriage, because of Rod's service in the Air Force, they moved a lot. Susan said probably around 10 times. And during one stretch, moved 3 times in 6 months. Rod and Susan share an extraordinary story about how they met. I'll say more about that in the sermon. Personally, I want to share that Rod was one of the first people I met here at United Church. He was the moderator when I arrived here in October of 2012. He was supportive. From the first day I met him, during my first weekend meeting with the search committee. What I have been thinking a lot about are those times when I got all worked up about something. Rod was always there, cool as could be, willing to listen and offer some sage advice. I'll miss our conversations, and we'll miss Rod at the table when we gather again for men's breakfast. He was usually the first to arrive and the last to leave. Rod made a strong, positive impact on countless people in and out of the church over the course of his lifetime. And of course, Rod wasn't perfect. None of us are. He made mistakes, but he wasn't afraid of owning up to those. Most importantly, as a pastor, I saw a man with a good heart, a caring spirit, and an eye for doing what was right. Rod faced a number of health issues, but did so in an admirable fashion. Rod passed away March 6, 2021. A military committal service will be held later at the Arizona Veterans Memorial Cemetery. For today, we remember and give thanks to God for the life of Rodney Aurich. One of Rod's favorite hymns was In the Garden. The soloists will now share.